So yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ghostoul Podcast. This week's guest is Mrs. Haunted Histories herself. We have Penny Griffiths Morgan.
Hello.
Woo. Hello. Hi, Penny. You all right?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. A bit tired today. Fed up with working.
Well, yeah. I mean, my eldest child went back to school today. My youngest one goes back next week. I just want to get back into a routine.
Oh yeah,
again.
they're back, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they've started. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to get back into my routine again, and at least for a few months.
Yeah, until you get bored of it and you want to change.
Well, yeah.
So, first of all, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
Not a problem. So, for the people that are listening and watching that maybe don't know who you are, if you could just give us a little rundown of what you do and who you are, that'd be great.
Well, you kind of said it. I'm Mrs. Haunted Histories. I started the Haunted Histories podcast probably crumbs. I was trying to work this out the other day, how long I've been doing it. It's about 8-9 years now.
Wow.
And that came about because I was doing a ghost hunt with some people, and I was saying how frustrated I get when venues make up the history to try and encourage people to ghost hunt there, and this whole sort of somebody's got to have died in a horrific way for there to be a haunting and all of that. And so I started off Haunted Histories to try and show what the true history of these locations was, and to show that it's just as cool as this made up stuff. And it kind of took on a life of its own, really. There's more people doing similar to what I do now, and I've written 5 books. I've got my 6th one just in. That's the ones. Yeah. Oh, you haven't got Bosworth Hall. You haven't got Bosworth Hall.
No, I haven't got that one yet.
That one. You haven't got that one.
No, I haven't got that one yet. It's on my list. On my list.
So yeah, I've just finished the 6th one. That's with Dead Good Publishing right now. They're just working on the cover art and everything else. And yeah, from there so basically my thing is I tell people I'm a paranormal historian, you know, a bit like people like Neil Story, Kate Sherrill, all of those. But I'm not necessarily a historian of the paranormal in itself, although I have talked about it in Haunted Experiment, for example. But I'm a historian who works with the paranormal field. And that's led me on to do go get guest speaker at sort of conferences, be on different events, and being able to be there as their like on-hand historian for like haunted happenings and such like.
Oh wow.
And also obviously regular historian now, and Help My House is Haunted. Yeah. So that's that's it. And who knows where it's going to lead me, because it's so much fun, and I'm loving every minute of it. You're
a busy lady. Non-stop.
Yes.
So what got you started into the paranormal back in the day? What sparked your interest?
Well, as a kid, I always had an interest in it. I always thought there was something. I kind of thought I was different to people, that I could sense things that they couldn't. Where I grew up in the middle of Norfolk, even though our house itself wasn't an old house, it was 1960s, I saw shadow figures in the house. Obviously, I didn't know the shadow figures were 7 years old, but I saw shadow figures. Would hear footsteps along the landing of my parents' house, and there's no one there, and it was definite footsteps. In fact, it still happens now in the house. My husband, when we go to stay there, and we've been together over 20 years, he won't come out of the bedroom at night when he is it's going to the toilet. I have to take him to the toilet to show him his safe. Yeah, pretty much. And it was all that kind of thing. And so I always thought there was something different. Plus the experience I've talked about quite a few times, where there was my late sister and I were walking our dog in the village. And there was this rundown barn. It was black. It was derelict. But there was no light in the barn. And her and I used to dare each other to look through the sort of cracks in the broken door. And we had this, and I know people hate the word orb, but it was like an orb type light, but we could see it with our naked eyes, and it was flying around. But not following like air pans. It was like shooting up and then shooting across and shooting down. And we're both transfixed watching this thing. And it suddenly flew straight to the door where we were standing and just hovered in front of us and vanished. Just like that.
Wow. And
I tend to say it was my Tinkerbell experience, because it makes me think of Tinkerbell in like Peter Pan, how bright it was and the way it was flying around. And there was no light coming in. There was nothing in there. Obviously, we don't have insects in the UK that I mean, it was so bright. It was like, it wasn't even as bright as a torch. It was brighter. It was luminescent.
Wow.
And that sort of, that was kind of the start of really sort of like, there is something in this. But as I got into my 20s, I sort of thought, nah, I'm going to be sensible. I'm going to dress normally. You know, no more all black and everything. Hide the tattoos, get a proper job, get a mortgage. And I did that for about 10 years. And then it was when I was I was doing a night feed with my youngest. So we're talking 11 years ago. And I don't know if anyone's ever done night feeds with babies. They tend to go on a long time.
Yeah.
And so
too long.
Too long. And because my husband was working full time, I was breastfeeding, so I was doing the bulk of it. And so I'd come downstairs and I was going through the television trying to find something to watch. Well, sort of 40 minutes went by, and I stumbled across this program where these blokes were walking around like these haunted locations with gadgets, and they had these weird accents, and I couldn't really understand them. It was Ghost Asylum with the Tennessee Wraith Chasers.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and I was so sort of like, this is so cool. I didn't know you could do this. And so I sort of set it on record, as you sort of 11 years ago you did with the old-fashioned TiVo boxes, so that I had something to watch every night if baby got me up at that sort of time to do a feed. And I remember telling my husband, saying, it looks so cool. And he goes, well, why don't you do it then? You've always had an interest in it. Sod what other people think. And so then I started sort of Googling event companies that were prepared to train me up, and that was 11 years ago. And
wow.
So I'd say I've always had an interest in it,
but
stifled it for quite a long time. But now I've got to the stage where I don't care what people think.
Embrace it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, my son, my nearly 15-year-old son, is now following in my footsteps.
Nothing wrong with that.
You probably met him at the Parameet, I think.
Yes, at the table. Yeah,
he's now following in my footsteps. So
do you take him out on like investigations?
I do. Yeah. I'm very selective where I'll take him. I've always, because of the fact he is a minor, but I know that he can handle it. I also know that I'm watching over him, and so it's only if it's a venue that I'm pretty sure there's nothing nasty there. It's just, and he's quite good in that he doesn't whilst he does watch all the YouTubers, like the ones for teenagers now, he's seen me do it enough to sort of, when people go, oh my god, it's a ghost, it's an orb, and he'll be like, no, it's your camera reflecting the dust. And I'm just like, I'm so proud of you, child. You know, but he doesn't come on loads of investigations with me, because I'll only take him if I know all the people I'm going to be with, which I don't always know, and also it's a venue that I feel he's going to be safe in. But he's kind of following in my footsteps, which is although he said, do not ever ask me to do the history stuff, I am not doing history talks, so that's fine.
So what's your stance on minors, as it were, going out into the paranormal, going on investigations, ghost hunts? Because I used to take my kids out, obviously they watch all my stuff, and I think my kids were like 11, 12 onwards. I used to take them to the local graveyard at like midnight, a weekend, not school night. And like when you put stuff up about it, there's always a debate. Like, oh, you're too young, they can't handle it. It's like, I could look after my children. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yep.
You know. So just wondered what your sort of thoughts were on the age thing.
I think I wouldn't take him on a public type investigation where I can't control who's there.
Yeah.
But that's not because I'm scared of what the spirits are going to do. I mean, I always jokingly say the living scare me more than the dead. They genuinely do.
Definitely.
And I know you've met me. I'm not very tall, but as Rachel Ashton calls me, I'm tiny but mighty. I will fight if I have to.
Let's go.
Yeah. But I think it should be up to the parent or the guardian whether their child is capable. I mean, Will's been having, my eldest, and he doesn't mind me using his name, has been having experiences since he was young. I mean, I remember there was an experience he had where my parents live in Norfolk. It used to be a World War II US Air Force, headquarters in this woods.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And I never knew that for years and years. I knew they used the hall, but I didn't know they had all these outbuildings in the woods because there's no remains of them. But I always used to feel when I was walking in there, I was being watched. Anyway, we were there. We were walking our old dog. So my son must have been 7, 8, middle of the day, walking in these woods, lovely dog walk. And I could feel someone breathing on my neck. You know that feeling when you can feel someone's breathing on your neck, but you know there's no one there. Yeah. And I'm trying really hard not to turn round to just double check there's no one there because I knew there was no one there because the dog would have reacted.
Yeah.
Will's in front of me and he turns around and goes, "Mum, who's following you?" So it's all very well saying kids shouldn't do investigations, but they still have the abilities. You don't have to be taking them somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. No. You know, they can still pick up on stuff. And it's I personally think it's how you help them deal with that. That's the important thing. I wouldn't take him every weekend to do investigations. No, he's not old enough for that. He's schoolwork's a priority these days and with his mates. But I'm doing one in a couple of weeks. It's a place in Chelmsford. It's a private investigation. I know the location. I know the owners. And I'm taking him along because I actually think his energy will be quite good in this place, being young. But I think it should be... It's a bit like a comparison. You know that Kirsty Allsop who's been in trouble with social services for letting her 15, just turned 16 son go on a trip around Europe on the train?
Yeah.
You read about that. I think it's a similar thing. She said she knows he could handle himself.
Yeah.
It's not like she's making him, I don't know, go into the middle of Beirut and say, "Fight me." And I think it's a similar principle. I think, those groups like, is it Junior Paranormal that run the events for, they've got all the DBS. The group I mean? Yeah.
I've heard of them. Yeah, they're fairly recent, aren't they?
Yeah. But they've got all, they're all sort of DBS checked. I think one of them, I'm pretty sure she's a teacher by trade.
Yeah.
They don't do things till like midnight. They're sort of late afternoon, early evening, but they're teaching kids how to approach it and how to deal with it. And I don't think personally, as long as you're doing it in the right way, it's any more different than teaching a child how to be around dogs. Because everyone goes about, "Oh, you shouldn't have dogs if you've got children. Dogs are dangerous." I've grown up with dogs. My kids have grown up with dogs.
Yeah.
That's how you deal with it. And although, I mean, I know the paranormal world is a little bit different to but it's that I think it should be at the parents' discretion. I mean, one of my son's friends, he would love to come on a ghost hunt with us. And I've said no, because I don't think he could cope with it. I think and I haven't got the ability to be looking after him on a one-to-one.
No.
So that's where, I think it shouldn't be a blanket yes and it shouldn't be a blanket no, but that's just my opinion.
See, I think, like you say, your son experiences things. I think it doesn't matter what age, personally, if they are experiencing things, if they can sense ghosts or see them, it would be best for them to learn and to understand rather than be scared of it. I don't think there should be an age.
No.
If they've got these abilities or whatever, if they're fascinated by it, let them learn, let them understand, so that in the future they can make their own mind up if they want to carry on, or there shouldn't, like there is no age limit apart from obviously events companies for
which I get reasons. It's their insurance. It's their insurance, and I understand that. But I'm also it's a bit like kids are going to experiment with stuff.
Yeah.
And because there is such a surge of these sort of paranormal teams on YouTube now, which is readily accessible to them, I would rather he sort of came to me and he said, Mum, we really want to do an investigation at this place. And I knew what he was doing, then he was sneaking out with his mates, messing around on private property, getting himself potentially into trouble.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of, it's like when we know that kids are going to drink, they're going to try alcohol. Yeah. We've all done it. Yep. But if there is a sort of, right, you want to try, you're 15, you want to have a beer with your dinner tonight, all right.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's I do find it interesting that a lot of the more vehement comments against it are from people who aren't parents. That's what I find quite interesting. But I think it shouldn't be a blanket yes or no. It's and whilst I wouldn't take him on some of the big events with members of the public yet. I think if it's a private one where I know everyone who's going to be there and they know me, I can't see what the issue is.
No, I think it's perfectly fine personally, and I had many back and forths with people online, but I don't care. It's my decision. I'm the parent. There you go.
Exactly. That's why I don't get involved in the arguments online, because it's like, I know my son better than you do. Not you, but you know what I mean? I know my son better than they do. Like I say, it shouldn't be a blanket yes and it shouldn't be a blanket no. So that's my viewpoint on it. My younger son, no, I wouldn't. He's on the spectrum. He would get too easily influenced, but he does know what I do. He does know how I think about it. And when he's had a few weird experiences, we have sat and talked about them, so that he's not scared of the paranormal.
Exactly, yeah.
But no, I wouldn't take him. He wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, he's 11, but I think even when he's 16, he wouldn't be able to do it. Whereas my older one is different. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's good. So at the start, you mentioned the reason why you started Haunted Histories, because you were fed up with fake stories for these locations to make it scary, etc. Is there any stories in the paranormal that you think, like locations or tales, that are fake, that people regularly go to investigate?
Oh, don't get me started.
That you're willing to talk about.
Yeah,
anyway.
There's a few that I'm not willing to, because I know there's one historian that exposed one location. I'll tell you about it off air. He got death threats for exposing the lies. So that you have to be a little bit careful. I mean, one of the ones that Kelvedon Hatch nuclear bunker. Yeah. It was always well known that whereas Drakelow tunnels, people did die when it was being made. Yeah. They did, and it's documented.
That's cave-ins, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was one of them. There was also some guys who, because they had like wasn't a conveyor belt, but it's like a conveyor belt bringing the rubble out. Some guys decided rather than walk it, they'd sit on the belt. And they got crushed within the belt. That was another one. There was also someone got on a motorbike, I think it was, off the top of my head, got hit by the bus, because people would get bussed into the location, so they didn't know where it was because of how secret it was. Yeah. And the bus knocked someone off their motorbike. So there have been deaths there that are documented. Yeah. However, Kelvedon Hatch, an amazing place. I love it to pieces. It's just up the road from me. There's not any. Yeah, about 6 or 7 years ago, these stories started going out that one of the foremen, when it was being built, drowned in the concrete. Right? I can't find any validation for that whatsoever. No. Also, I've talked to people who are builders. I've talked to people who are like concrete specialists, for want of a better term. Yeah. Like, it's actually quite hard to drown in concrete. You don't sink low enough. Right. And there's that one. There's also meant to have been someone who in the late 80s took his own life by hanging himself off the stairwell. Can't find any death records relating to that. So I'm kind of, I'm very skeptical that anyone did meet their end there. Now, when people say, well, why is it haunted then? Because if you worked here and you signed a contract to say you'd have signed an NDA, for one, you've got the Official Secrecy Act you would have signed. Yeah. Plus also, what's quite weird about these nuclear bunkers, and it's almost like a muscle memory thing, if you were told you're coming in, there's a potential nuclear threat, you had to forget everyone and everything and just go, knowing full well that your family were probably going to be eviscerated outside the walls. You couldn't even think about that. So you had to have this almost internal pull to a place. Could that not be the reason the spirits return?
Yeah. See, I'd never been there until this year. And no, I hadn't. No, never had the chance to go there. But this year I did. I went with Mark and Rich, West London Paranormal.
Yep.
And I always, in my mind, I always thought, it's a nuclear bunker. There was no nuclear war. People work there, but why would it be haunted? Like, no one died there. But when I went there, I thought, oh my God, I love that place.
Brilliant,
I love that place.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep.
It's like, wow. It's so, it was pretty active when we were there, to be fair, in the sick bay and the dorm rooms. Amazing.
Yeah, I actually managed to, I was talking to Barry Guy once, and I actually managed to get Barry Guy to go, huh? When I told him something that happened to me when I was there. He was like, that can't have happened. I said, it did. I had witnesses. I was in, I think it was the radio room where there's the Mac room, where there's the big Mac table, and there's a Spitfire. I mean, why there's a Spitfire when it wasn't built till the 1950? I don't know.
Yeah, hanging.
There's a Spitfire, and I had the spirit box going, and there were voices coming through the spirit box, and it was a woman's voice, and she was saying things like hurricane, flood, blah blah blah, and I thought, oh, it's just picking up a radio, because at that point we had a lot of floods and everything in the world, and then somebody said, it can't get a radio down here. That's why it's got such a huge transmitter. It's in a Faraday cage. It cannot pick up any radio signals. And we double checked that, and it couldn't pick up a radio signal. Yet I had distinct voices coming through on the spirit box.
Yeah. Yeah, we did spirit box down there. And we got a couple of female voices, but nothing for about half an hour. Probably got 2 or 3 words in half an hour.
Yeah, this was pumping this stuff out. And when I sort of researched it, it was like, well, hang on, that's actually what happens after a nuclear bomb goes off. That's the same phenomena that would happen. Now, you mentioned about the fact we'd never had a nuclear war. We have come close on a couple of occasions. And I'm about 15 miles up the road from it. And I had clients who were in Kelvedon Hatch. And I was nattering away to them. It's about 9-10 years ago now. And I was chatting away to them, and I was sort of saying, have you always lived here, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, my dad used to work at the bunker. He was a telephone technician in the 60s. I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, any stories to tell me? Because I'm fascinated by the bunker. And she goes, well, I do remember there was a time where he didn't come home for nearly 3 weeks, which was really unusual because he normally came home every night. And when they gave me the dates, it was the exact time of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, wow. They kept him down there.
And I haven't got proof. I've been trying to get the owner, Mike Parrish, to look it up for me. I think they locked it down. I think they shut the doors and went operational.
Well, because, if that's a risk. Yeah,
we were that close to nuclear war. I think they went operational. And that's why he didn't come home, because the doors were locked. Because they really thought that someone was going to press the button. So with that kind of energy hanging over you, is it any wonder that sometimes people have gone back because they've been pulled back? I think it's a brilliant place, and I do see a lot of people criticize it, saying, oh, it's really unkempt, it's really messy, but that's the point. It's meant to feel like you're in a wasteland. You're meant to feel, you don't want to feel like there's like tour guides walking around telling you what to do. You've got to experience it yourself and feel like you are the last person on earth. What it was like for them. Yeah, it's an amazing place. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I like it there. Like I say, it's only 15 miles up the road from me, so I have been first time I went there, because I moved back down to Essex about 20 odd years ago, and I kept seeing the signpost for the secret nuclear bunker, which always used to make me laugh. And
don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone, but then again, you've been there. Would you find it without the signs?
No.
You really wouldn't, would you?
No.
It's so well hidden. I remember, I think it was my birthday. It must have been, about 20 years ago. And my husband has said to me, what do you want to do for your birthday? I said, look, I know this sounds weird, but I want to go see Kelvedon Hatch. And he's like, yeah, all right, because he's into like history and all of that as well. And yeah, we that was when I had a paranormal experience on that first ever visit there. So, and he was there and he had it too. So
Oh wow.
it is an amazing. It's one of those places that, yes, it gets done a lot, but I think for the younger age group that haven't grown up with the threat of nuclear war hanging over their heads like 70s, 80s kids did,
Yeah.
it's quite an eye opener.
Yeah, I think they should all go there.
Mm.
I think history is important anyway for kids. I mean, I didn't like history at school, but since doing this paranormal side of life, love it. You know, I love history.
I get that a lot from. I mean, I failed my history A level. You know, I failed it because I found it so boring. But a lot of the problem with it is who's teaching.
Yeah.
If you've been a great teacher for history, I mean, the biggest compliment I've had is someone come up to me and say, "Do you know what? I used to hate history until I heard you. Now I'm interested in it." And that to me, that's perfect. And I was lucky. I had a really good GCSE history teacher. He's the one that really cemented my love of it and questioning it and everything else. My A-level teachers were like, "No, you just learn it. You don't question it." And it was kind of like, "Oh, this is so boring." Whereas Phil, my late GCSE teacher, he made it come alive. And that's what I try to do for people. It's give them sort of, so they actually do start asking questions and like, well, actually, I'm going to look that up myself now. That's great. You know, nobody's imagination is better than what's actually happened in history. You know, if someone says to me, "Oh, what about this situation?" I'm like, right, well, you know,
this happened.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people think a soap opera is like twists and turns. You just read about the Plantagenets if you want twists and turns, you know. And it's, yeah, I think it's something that if you can develop, I think schools don't always teach it in the right way.
No,
they don't. They teach it to the syllabus rather than teach it for people to understand why it's so important.
Yeah, I just learnt about Henry VIII and Tudor. That was probably about it, really. And I dropped it for geography.
My son's just done that for his GCSEs. He's dropped it for. He was like, "Mum, I'm so sorry," and I said, "It's fine. You can't. You know, you have to do one or the other. It's fine." Yeah. But I'm still going to be dragging you around museums and falling down buildings and everything else, whether you like it or not. But there are certain things he is interested in, you know, like the World War stuff and all of that. He's fascinated by. So, yeah, it's all good.
That's good. Yeah. So a few years ago, I seem to remember you met up with a few other paranormal ladies for an article, wasn't it?
In the Daily Mail.
Yes, that was it. And
that was 6-7 years ago now, I think.
Yes, I remember that, yeah. So leading on from that, for the paranormal TV shows, do you think that is overpowered by men on the TV? Where's the women's shows? Where's the female investigators?
Right, they're out there. There's loads of them. I mean, I was... I know Katrina Weidman, for example, and her and I have discussed this. The problem is female-fronted stuff in everything doesn't do as well. I mean, Heather Taddy, I got to meet her when I was in the States earlier this year, and she's amazing, and she's got such an amazing energy about. I'd watch her read the phone book. She's amazing. But the problem is, in any environment these days, women aren't as big a pull as the men. I don't know why. Whether you're talking about women's sport, whether you're talking about women in history, whether you're talking about, I mean, my day job, and yes, I do have a day job, is in financial services. That's very, very male orientated as well. And I don't know why all of this, because, you know, whether it's a case of women aren't always as willing to push themselves. I mean, you know, no disrespect to men. Men tend to have that ability to focus a lot more on what it is they want and have the arrogance to believe that they are the best. And I'm quite jealous of men who can do that. Because I've always got the inferiority complex nudging away behind me. Whether that's the reason, the fact that there's all these things that men have more confidence at asking for a pay rise, whereas women don't. I think it's all linked. Plus, also, it's actually very hard to get a female-fronted television series commissioned. because people seem to want to watch men.
See,
I don't know why.
It's weird though, because when you want to sell something, you normally use a woman to promote it in whatever industry. So you'd think that they would want to have a woman presenter on the front line of a show, but
I don't know what it is. I mean, you mentioned it has to be a woman though, but it normally has to be a very attractive woman as well. We could get into a whole conversation about, the fact that she has to be she has to be about 35, good looking, articulate, and yet you've got you get it in the history thing a lot. I mean, one of my favorite historians is Susanna Lipscomb. I think she's amazing. I went on an online lecture that she did last year and blew my mind. Yeah. I felt like such a fish out of water with the only one part of it I was able to keep up with. It was all about women in history, and they did a section on witchcraft, and I was the one being able to lead some of the conversation because it was a subject I knew very well. Yeah. She's absolutely stunning, incredibly intelligent, incredibly articulate, stunningly good looking. Even she said if she didn't look the way she did, she probably wouldn't get some of the TV work she does, even with her CV, her body of work, because you get someone like the historian Mary Beard, who I think she's in her early 70s now, although I might be doing a disservice, grey hair, wears what the hell she wants. And people have sort of said, oh no, you're not TV friendly. Yet she knows her subject better than anyone else. So I think, I don't know why we don't know whether I do find a lot of women, when they see me presenting, like going up on a stage in front of people, like, God, how'd you do that? That's so scary. And I'm like, I know my subjects. I know I'm good at it. I've done it for a very, very long time. But there's a lot of women who haven't got the confidence. And that's where I think the problem might be. It's a confidence thing. It's believing in themselves.
Could be.
I have been told by production companies it's very, very hard to get funding for female-fronted television shows.
Oh, that's a shame, though, isn't it? It should be equal, I think.
It's not,
especially if they're good. There's lots of really good female paranormal investigators that I know and I've worked with, and you've got other people that are men, and basically they're pretty shit who know nothing, but because they know somebody, or they get access to certain places, they get higher up in the on the scale.
That's life. That is life, whether you're male or female, I think. But I do think it's, I'm an ex-rugby player, and I used to go.
Oh, wow.
I used to go and watch women's rugby. 10 years ago, hardly anyone would turn up. It was like, oh, it's not sport, is it? It's getting bigger now. I mean, the England women's rugby team, they do tend to sell out when they're playing at the smaller stadiums for their England games. But they still had to fight to be allowed to play at Twickenham, for example. Yet they're their national team, albeit the female one. I don't like football, but it's the same thing in women's football. It's there's an awful lot of people that won't watch it, which women playing football. They can still outplay a lot of the lower level teams quite easily. So I don't know, but I think the world in general is partly who you know, not what you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I mean, the new Haunted magazine is the Women in Paranormal issue that's just come out. And I know that, Paul and Andy are very much like, there are some amazing women out there. Why are they not getting more recognition? I don't know. It's a societal thing, I think. I think we're still fighting to be seen as having something worthwhile to say. And I would be interested to see what the breakdown of paranormal show audiences are, like the age range and the genders, to see, is it mainly women who watch them, or is it mainly men who watch them, or what's the age range, and then looking at the demographics. That would be something quite interesting to learn. Yeah,
maybe that will give us an answer. But
who knows? Who knows?
But you mentioned witches. One of the places that I'd never been to until last Halloween. I went to Pendle Hill.
Yeah.
I just wondered, have you been there?
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that is quite a long trek from where I am in Essex up to Lancashire.
Yeah.
5-6 hours.
5 hours, yeah.
And bear in mind, I live in witch country in Essex. I mean, we have got more witch stuff here than anywhere else. So, no, I haven't actually been to. I know Pendle. I know the story. I listened to it. I've watched stuff on it. But I admit I tend to focus on my own witch stories from my own county, because we've got quite a few here. Yeah.
Oh, okay, didn't know that.
Essex had between, and I can't remember the exact figures, but between about 1550 and 1650. So when witch trials really stopped after Hopkins and Stern, we had more people tried and executed for witchcraft than any other county in England. In Essex.
Did not know that.
No, people don't. I mean, I had, when that Saran Jones program came out recently, I was having a row with someone on the Daily Mail website, because they were like, oh, why didn't they mention Hopkins and Stern? They executed loads of women in Norfolk and Suffolk. I went, no, they actually, it was East Anglia in general, but they executed more in Essex than anywhere else. And she went, no, they didn't. They never went to Essex. And I was like, they were from Essex, you stupid individual. But that's the point. People just look at Essex as being Towie. They don't realise what Essex. But yeah, we had more people, because there were men as well, tried and executed for witchcraft between about 1550 and 1650. We also had the first person executed for witchcraft when it became an official crime in Essex, and it was the first big. It was a lady by the name of Agnes Waterhouse. She wasn't the first witch ever executed, but she was the first one that was like a newspaper thing and was a big publicity thing. And that was in Essex. That was in Chelmsford. So yeah, there's an awful lot here, but I think people, because it's not pretty, and people see Towie, they see London Overspill, they don't realise what the history. I mean, say Matthew Hopkins was from Essex, so was John Stern. And they're probably two of the most famous names associated with witches.
Witches, yeah.
So there you go.
I'm learning today. Oh dear. So you mentioned getting up on stage, doing your public speaking. So you've obviously, I last saw you at Parameet.
Yes.
This year, beginning of the year. I believe you've got another one coming up.
Yes. Well, I've got the Festival of the Unexplained in about 3 weeks. I think it's approaching. I've rewritten my talk for that one. And I also do the history tour on the Friday, which I'm in the process of writing, and I can't tell you where it is or what it is because it's a mystery history tour. Okay. But that one's busily being worked on. And then the next thing, is the Parameet North, October
the 19th. Yeah, I'm going to that.
Yeah. I'm going up to Wakefield to see Rachel Ashman, because that's where she lives, and then I'm going to Pontefract from there. So I'll be at that one as well. I'm doing a different talk. I'm not doing workhouses this time. I'm doing something different.
So what got you into the speaking? Is it linked from your Haunted Histories?
I've always done it.
You've always done it, yeah.
I did a talk recently to the Essex UFO and Paranormal Society, and they sort of said, are you comfortable setting up and everything else? I said, yeah, I'm fine. And he goes, how long have you been doing speaking for? And I went, about 40 years. And he went, what? I said, the first talk I ever did was when I was just under 40 years. I was about 12, 13 years old, and it was an English project at school. And we had to do a 10 to 10 minute talk on something we were interested in. And I chose to do a talk on World War I aircraft, because that weekend we'd gone to an air show at Norwich Airport, and I had to prep this talk. And my dad has said, why don't you do it on World War I aircraft? Nobody else will be doing it on there. And so we bought some postcards for prompts, and I did it on that. Now one of the makes of World War I aircraft were Fokkers, F-O-K-K-E-R, Fokkers.
Fokker, yeah.
And so I'm like 12, 13. You can see where this is going. And I was like, this is a Fokker, whatever. And the whole class went, because our English teacher was the headmaster, and he didn't have a sense of humour, shall we say. And they were like, Penny just swore. And he went, no, she didn't. It is actually called a Fokker. Can you all listen, please? And I did it deliberately, because I knew if I make people laugh, they're going to listen. And it sort of went from there, really. And when I was at sixth form, I always used to get up and give presentations to the rest of the school on behalf of the committee. And so I'd always I've always done the public speaking. I think I was 26, 27. I became a technical trainer for the life insurance company. So I was talking to anything from 20 people to 500 people.
Wow.
So it's something presenting is something I've always done. And I'm one of those people, if you give me a subject, give me a chance to get to know it properly, I can talk on it. It's a skill that, like I say, it's not a new thing. I've always done it. It's a strength of mine, because I do enjoy it.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything worse. I hate public speaking.
My husband's the same. He's quite happy when we did the UFO one, because he was in Southend, and he said, I'll drive you, because he likes seeing me perform, for want of a better term. And he said, I'll carry everything. I'll sort out your books. You do all the public stuff. That's fine. It's I know it's not something that everyone can do, but then again, he can get up on a roof like 6 stories up and fix that. I couldn't even get up the ladder. So everyone's got their strengths. Yeah,
definitely. So in one of your books, you mention a certain school.
Are we talking about a certain one in Hitchin?
The certain one in Hitchin, yes. I got to go there last year, and I was blown away.
Good, isn't it?
By this place. It's just like, wow. So the British Schools Museum in Hitchin. Yeah. The evidence we were getting in there, the voices, the equipment going off, the footsteps, the bangs, and small groups as well. And it's like, wow.
It's one of those places that even if you're not going to go there as an investigator, go there and visit it as a museum, because it is so important to education history and the history of the poor and everything else. The book I wrote, and it's called Paranormal Playtime: The School That Never Sleeps. I'm waiting for my faithful assistant here and that's actually my 2 sons on the front. Those are my 2 sons. Yeah.
Oh wow.
The wonderful Andy Saw does all my artwork, and I said I want my boys on it, and we came up with that idea.
That's brilliant.
So
the school that never sleeps.
Well, I don't think it does. It doesn't sleep. I've investigated it. When they asked me to write the book, it was going to be their silver anniversary of being a museum.
All right.
And then I had all these investigations planned, like overnighters, all that stuff, with lots of people to help me get the energy, and COVID hit. The book. So I had to be a bit inventive on how, and they said, well, look, we've still got to be here checking over the building. Do you want to come in during the day when we're here? And you'll be on your own. Well, there'll be one other person like managing the school, but there won't be public here. It's shut. And that's how I did a lot of my research. I was on my own in the building. And it's one of those that I have never, ever, ever felt unsafe in, ever.
No.
I personally feel the energy there is so good and so innocent. It's not one of those places that I feel I have to look over my shoulder in.
No.
I know there's some people who said, oh no, one of the teachers was a child abuser, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, they weren't. There's nothing in the history books to suggest that. The only person who can be a bit cantankerous is the old headmaster in his house, because
that headmaster's house was brilliant. Upstairs. Wow.
He doesn't like you leaving the door open. He will slam it shut. And I said this on an interview I did recently, and they said, are you sure it's not just the door has an automatic? No, it doesn't have an automatic shut on it. It doesn't get caught by a draft. If you do not shut that door when you go in that house, he will slam it shut. And it's not just me that experienced it. Staff have said it as well. And I think they'd know if it was an automatic door.
Yeah, because,
But those stairs, they make you... I remember, again, I'd taken my oldest in there as a museum, and he's walking up the stairs and he's like this. And I was like, you're right. And he goes, I feel sick. I feel like I'm on a boat. And I was like, it's exactly how they make me feel. They make me feel like I'm on a ship.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the wood had come from...
Yeah, I was going to say, from a ship,
possibly.
The timber,
Yeah. But no, that house is... I've had quite a few weird... I was there with a group, and we had a laser grid. It changed colour, and it wasn't the kind of laser grid that changed colour. It went green to red. And it wasn't one that it was I know because it was my laser grid. It was only
colour.
a green. It was single colour, and it went red. We saw it happen. It was only like that.
Yeah.
But I think there was 3 of us sat on like the landing.
Yeah.
Saw it change colour and then go back again. And it didn't do that.
So I wonder if you can help me with something concerning that house. You know, is it the boys area? With the massive hall where you have all the chairs and the
what, like the front room where the table is, or
not the small one, the big one that's massive that has small rooms off of it, and it's got
the monitorial classroom.
Possibly, yeah, with all the benches with all the slate.
Yeah, so that would have been the old classroom. That was the monitorial schoolroom. Yeah.
In there, when we had our like guide go through when we were investigating there. He said that naughty boys were put in a cage on the ceiling, put in a cage and taken up, and they'd be up in a cage while the lesson was on. Now, I don't...
Who told you that?
I can't remember who it was, but it was on
the... someone who worked there?
Not 100% sure.
Okay. There was meant to be... it was a common punishment in the early 1800s. It was either to put them in a cage or put them in the sacks. I can't remember what the material, the canvassy sacks that they had.
The Hessian sacks, yeah.
That's it. That's the word I was looking for. However, Joseph Lancaster, who came up with the monitorial method, the other person who came up with it was a guy by the name of Dr. Andrew Bell. And I'm racking my brains right now because this is what I've been reading about. I've been reading about something else historical today, so I might get this wrong. Now, at the same time that Joseph Lancaster, who devised the Lancasterian method, which is what Hitchin abided by, there was a guy called Dr. Andrew Bell who was coming up with it, and he called it the Madras method. Now, Andrew Bell was basically the one who set up what are known as national schools. Now, these were primary schools that were attached to a local church. So if you saw one now, you might see a Church of England school, like such and such Church of England school. They would have been national schools back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
So they were very, very religious orientated. They still had canings. They still had that kind of punishment. They were very much punish rather than praise. Joseph Lancaster didn't believe that was a good way of teaching. He actually said you should focus on praising the good than punishing
the
mistakes.
And the bad,
so, for example, one of the things I think it's in the museum at Hitchin they talk about is they knew that some kids, for them just to get to school every day, even if they might be late, was a massive achievement because the sort of £1 a week that it cost for them to do that education meant that maybe they went without bread one day. It was a massive sacrifice for these families. So they would get given, rather than getting a reward for getting an A grade in their work, they would get a reward for coming to school every day for a month. So he believed in rewarding what these kids. So he was one of the early ones to sort of say, yes, you had to achieve certain levels before you went up to the next grade, but rewards were given for doing things that weren't necessarily education based, but were still showing that the person was trying to achieve something. It was also non-denominational. So the schools were non-denominational. And I looked through, when I was doing research for the book, I was looking through some of the old registers. And you had kids Catholic, Jewish, what else do we have? Lutheran, Quaker. Whereas if I look through the register of a national school, it would be Protestant. So they were non-denominational schools, which was another massive thing. So they may have used it. It may have been the odd thing done, but it wasn't part of Lancaster's ideology on teaching, because but they did use things like the dunce's cap and everything, but that was very, very that was commonplace. But no, he actually felt that a lot of these punishments were actually would not help, but that's not to say that certain teachers might have used it because they felt that was the right way.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask because I heard of it and I thought, well, that's a bit mean.
It did happen. It did happen, but I do know that Lancaster was very against
that, yeah.
that sort of thing. He didn't feel it would help, but it definitely did happen. Whether it happened to Hitchin, I don't know. I've never seen their punishment book. I do know that schools had to keep a punishment book, though. If they meted out punishments, it had to be documented.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I did see that when the school my sons went to, that was built, it was in the 20s. I remember the deputy head at the time, when she found out I was interested in history, she said, would you like to have a look at our punishment book? It dates back to 1923 and it went through to about 1950 something. And
wow.
yeah, I mean, that was normally canings or detentions or things, but no, Lancaster felt you should reward what a child can achieve, even if the achievement is just coming to school every day, rather than rather than
the punishment all the time and causing a negative effect on the child. Yeah.
The last thing he wanted was kids not to come to school, because he knew that the only way to get them out of this poverty cycle was for them to get an education. And there is a couple of cases I tracked in the book to find out what happened to them, and they were born into sort of abject poverty. I think one of them ended up setting up his own building firm in the end. It became quite just from learning to read and write at Hitchin. So it's we are very lucky to have free education these days.
Yeah. So you mentioned being in the British Schools Museum, you felt safe. You didn't feel like there was something breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a location where you thought, oh, it's not good here?
I need to leave.
Yes. Have you?
Not many.
No.
Not many. The worst one I don't know if you ever did. Did you ever do the Leopard Inn in Burslem when it was still around?
No, I've heard of it, but I've never been there.
I mean, I actually did shed a tear when the place burned down, because this place was, apart from its historical importance, it was amazing. I mean, this is like a little old spit and sawdust pub in the centre of Burslem. Now, it would have been quite an affluent area in its day. Isn't now, but it was. And you go through this secret door, and it was a secret door, and there's this 3-story hotel behind it that, honestly, you couldn't see from the street. And I remember...
Oh, wow.
I was there with Chris Chell and Haunted Houses. He'd invited me along.
Yeah.
And we got there an hour early. And he said, go and explore. It's fine. And I was like, you sure? And he was like, yeah, go and explore. And I was like, where's the door then? And they moved this bit of plywood. There's the door. And it's like, honestly, it was a secret door. It was like going into Narnia. And you just walk, and there's just staircases. And it's not been touched.
Oh, wow.
And I must admit, I don't like birds. There was a lot of pigeons in there.
I can imagine, yeah.
I don't like birds. Flying rats. And also some of the wood is a bit sort of dubious as to whether you could stand on it. So I was more concerned I was going to break my ankle than the ghosts. But Chris had said to me, look, there's one bit on one of these, and these, you're like talking, I don't know how many bedrooms on each floor, 20 or 30 on each floor, something like that. He said one of the floors, there is an area that all the women turn around and say, I don't feel safe here, and they walk straight back out. He said, I'm not telling you where it is, see if you can find it. And I was exploring, dodging pigeons, and I walked around this corner, and all my spidey senses went, get out. I try and explain it, and women will get what I mean. Sometimes you're walking down a footpath and all of a sudden your body's going, move.
Yeah.
And there's someone there. And something has told you you're not safe. It's a sixth sense. You have to have it to survive.
Yeah.
And I get this sixth sense going off saying, get out. So I got out. I trust it. I got out. And when I went downstairs and he said, what bit didn't you like? And I explained the bit and he went, that's exactly it. Did you know? And I was like, no. And then when we were investigating it later, I could feel, I was with a group of people who'd never investigated before in this little room. And one of them was getting quite badly affected. And I could feel in that room, it was getting not darker and darker as in the lights were going off, but the feeling in that room was getting more and more, oh, this is a powder keg. And so I said to them, let's go out, because I needed to cut the energy off. And so, yes, I have felt that before. It doesn't happen very often because normally I can talk my way out of it. I'll talk to the whatever it is, and I'll say, like, I'm really sorry to intrude, blah blah blah. And if it backs off, but that the Leopard Inn, that one bit in the Leopard Inn, yeah, I did not feel. I felt if I'd stayed there on my own, I would have got hurt. It genuinely felt like that.
Oh wow. Mm. Do you think that spirits can harm you?
Mentally, yes. I don't physically. If they can throw something and they get a good aim, but I think it's more of it's kind of, I personally feel it's more of a mental way to hurt you,
psychologically,
and psychological that then manifests physically because of it. I mean, I have. There was a fort I did I think it was in Gravesend, and walking along the corridor, one of the tunnels, every woman that went past this one room went, oh, like something had just punched them in the solar plexus, and I was observing this happen.
Yeah.
And the young guy who was the guide at the place, I said to him, "Does that happen a lot?" And he goes, "Yeah." He said all the women come down and say that room, they feel like someone's punched them. And it happened to me as well. And I was just like, it's interesting. As the investigator, I wasn't very impressed with the company. I'm not going to say the company's name because I wasn't very impressed with them. They put too many people in there. They had a medium who wanted to be on stage, basically. He was telling us he was going to get barrels rolling down the corridors at us, and he was going to make that dummy dance and all this. And when he was trying to get the group scared, because we had quite a lot of virgins on it, and he was going, oh my God, look, that mannequin moved. And they're like, ah! And I went, no, it didn't. And he goes, it did. And I said, it's got a table propped up against it. If it had moved, table would have fallen over. And there's people going, oh yeah. And he didn't like me because I was like, oh no, don't do this. Don't do this ridiculous showbiz rubbish. No. You don't need to. This place has got enough stuff going on. Yeah. And this young lad had gone into that room where the punchy was. And he said, I need someone to help me. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I said, oh, can I go? And this guy's like, yeah, please go. I walk in this room and all I can smell is hot oil and sweat. That's the only, and it was so strong, the smell.
Yeah.
Like someone was working in there. And it did have one of the hoists that would have hoisted the shells up to the surface. And I said to this young lad, and I knew what I'd smelled. I said, can you smell anything? And he went, yeah, it smells like oil and sweat. And that was exactly what I was picking up. Anyway, one thing led to another. I sort of using K2 and asking it to ping up to red if my answer was correct. I think the guy who was haunting it, he, from what I managed to piece together from asking questions, he'd been stationed there. He had a girlfriend. She went off with his best mate. She didn't know when he was going to be coming back. Therefore, all women were awful and all women deserved to be punished, was kind of the nutshell. And I basically told him he was being a prat, and that's not the case, and that I'd been with my husband however many years and I'd never cheated on him, and it was the girl that was in the wrong. Not all women, we weren't all bad, blah, blah, blah. Didn't think anything. Smell went away. It was weird. The smell went. This was about 15 minutes this took, but I went back there about a year later and I bumped into the same guide. He recognised me, and I said, that room, has anything happened since? And he went, nah. He said, nobody has mentioned it.
Wow.
So whether I managed to calm the guy down and make him realise he was being a bit of a bully, I don't know. But so yes, I guess they can hurt you. I don't know if they can hurt you to the point where you're going to be hospitalised, but they can, yeah. But my theory on scratches isn't that they're demonic. I have a different theory on them.
I've been scratched at the Ram. I had 3 scratches on my neck.
Yep.
That I only noticed the next morning.
Yes, I had that happen at Penhurst Asylum when I was out there in America recently. I'd been shown around Penhurst Asylum for a couple of hours, went down to Candyland, what was their play area and everything. Yeah. It was weird and yes, it has an energy to it. The next day, I didn't have these sort of nails on. I had quite short nails. Wake up the next morning having a shower before we flew home to England. I was like, oh God, my neck really hurts, really stings, like soap had got in something. I look in the mirror and there's 3 scratches on my neck. They weren't there the night before. And I didn't have I tried to see if I could replicate it on the other side with my nails. Couldn't do it. No. So yeah, but I don't think it's demonic.
Oh no.
I think my theory on all of this sort of thing is that if you're a spirit and you have been you're standing next to someone and going, hello, 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 and they're ignoring you, you're going to start getting, oi, and then you're going to start tugging them like a toddler does if you're not. Then you're going to, and if you then discover that you can actually scratch someone and that makes them go, oh, you're going to do it.
Of course
and
you are.
That's my theory on it. I don't think it's necessarily nasty. I think it is attention seeking.
So over all the years you've been investigating and writing your stories, have you ever written about a demon or experienced a demon or an imp or anything like that? No? No.
I struggle to comprehend demons because I don't believe in God. And to me, the two are linked. The two are very, very linked.
Heaven and hell.
Yeah. I believe in nasty spirits. I believe in spirits that possibly think they're demonic because they were evil in life. They're going to be evil in death. But no, I have... Not that I would ridicule people who do believe in that because everyone has their own belief system. But
definitely.
I struggle with it. I would really struggle. And I do think... I personally do think too many people go, oh my God, it's demonic. Really?
I think TV's to blame for that and YouTube.
Well, do you know why they have more demons in America? Do you know why? Because they have basements. Why are the demons always in the basement?
Yeah.
No, I'm always willing to change my mind, and I do change my mind on things. I mean, Richard III, I used to think he was a child murdering arsehole. I did research on him. I've changed my mind, done a complete 180, so I can do it. But no, I struggle. But then again, when I listen to people like Kate Ray talk about elementals and gnomes and imps and the fae and everything, I'm like, it's so convincing. So, but no, I struggle with it. I think if demons do exist, they're not nearly as prevalent as people think they are.
I also think that if, like you say, you're trying to get someone's attention, you don't like them in your building for whatever reason, if you're a negative person, you could say pretend to be a demon to scare them, make sure they leave. So maybe people are experienced said demon, but it's not actually a demon. Like you say, it's got to be religious to be angels, demons, heaven, hell.
Yeah, so, but like I say, I that's just my opinion. I don't ridicule anyone who does believe something different. So I think one of the things about the paranormal and actually the history world as well is respecting other people's opinions. And just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong. Doesn't mean they're wrong and you're right. It's what helps. If you've got to question things to understand them, and you know, I see it in the history world when someone comes out with a different theory of how the evidence, what it adds up to me, and then people ridicule them for it. I may not agree with their conclusion, but I still find it interesting to understand it. And it's the same in the paranormal. You get an awful lot of people who, you know, I was watching a video on TikTok the other day, and this it wasn't a paranormal one. And this woman was talking about, I think it was she was talking about her late grandmother, I think. Yeah. And somebody goes, oh my God, look at all the orbs on your screen. And I was so tempted to say it's dust and insects. But I didn't, because they believed it was her grandmother saying that she was, you know, what they were doing was right. And I'm like, fine, I'll just let it go. I'll let it go. But then again, I do think orbs do exist, but I don't think they exist in the floating around on a mobile phone or a security camera or whatever. I think they're things you can see with your naked eye, and I have seen them with my naked eye. But yeah, I demons, I don't know, but say I don't believe in God, so I find it very, very hard to believe in the supposed religious creations that follow that.
They're just nasty monsters. That's all they are.
I could be. I mean, it's when people say, when friends who are non-paranormal say to me, "How do you do this? Don't you get scared?" And I'm like, "No." Think about it this way: if you're walking down the street, because if every every ghost is a former living person.
Mm.
So if you walk down the street, how many people do you think genuinely want to hurt you who don't know you? A friend of mine who's a copper said most of them. And I'm like, well, you're different.
Yeah.
You're a bit arrogant and a bit of an asshole. But who knows, I call him that all the time. But no, generally, if you're walking down as a normal person, how many complete strangers want to hurt you? 0.1%, maybe?
Yeah, not that many.
So why do we automatically assume that every single spirit wants to hurt us?
Yeah.
Why? Because if they've got the same personality they had when they were living, and that's the argument I tend to give to people when they're sort of like, oh, doesn't it scare you? And I was like, no, because I don't assume they want to be nasty.
No.
Or malevolent.
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 It's a good word, isn't it? Malevolent.
If you can say it, yeah.
Well, I nearly said Maleficent. I was like, that's the wrong one. It's
good film.
Yeah. But no, why do we assume everything is going to be malevolent? It might just be annoyed. It might just be having a bad day. It might just feel that nobody has listened to it for 300 years and it wants to talk to someone. You never know. Why not give them the benefit of the doubt if they're throwing stuff around and being a bit narky? Why not go in and sort of say, come on, then talk to me. Be their counsellor. That's
help them out.
Yes. If they're a sentient being, that's the way I look at it anyway. And I know there's people who laugh at my theories, but
hey, we're always learning. No one knows everything. If you're not learning every day doing this, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, with the history stuff, I learn something new every single time I pick a new book up or Google something. It never stops, and that's why I'm not bored with it yet after nearly 11 years of doing this. Normally I'll have been bored by now, but it never stops. So yeah, there's always something more to learn.
So what's your favourite location you've been to over the years?
Landguard Fort.
Oh yeah.
Been there?
No.
Put it on.
Where is it?
Where is it? It's in England.
Yeah, it's the start.
Felixstowe, Suffolk.
Oh, south. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the south. It's one of those places that it's got an incredible history to it. A lot of people think it's Victorian. It's not. It actually dates back to Henry VIII. I have had stuff happen there every single time I visit. I say the history of the place is phenomenal. It was the site of the last ever seaborne invasion of England in 1667. Next door to it is Felixstowe Docks, but before they were a docks, they were a Royal Naval Air Station in World War One. It's just awesome. It's an awesome place, and I've converted quite a few people to it when they've sort of come along and sort of been a bit like, oh, it's just a fort, and they've left going, I'm coming back here. I'm coming back here. It's brilliant. It is probably my. But again, it's another one. I like military places. I feel comfortable. My nickname is the military magnet because I pull military stuff out wherever I go.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But it's one of those places that if you said to me, you've got to put a tent up in the parade ground and sleep here for 2 nights, I'd be like, yeah, all right.
You're fine. Yeah.
I feel absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that's probably my favourite location that I go back to on a regular basis because it's about an hour or so away from me. But
that's not too bad.
It's just, yeah, I love it there.
Yeah. I have to add it to my bucket list.
Oh, do. It's really worth it. I mean, it's just a really interesting place, and it's got an amazing history. And like I say, it dates back to Henry VIII.
Yeah. There's Penny gone.
Back. I'm back.
There she is.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You went as well, so it must be it's probably my signal. I've got about 4 other people on the internet in the house, so it's probably that. But yeah, Landguard Fort. That's my to date. That's my favourite. But
favourite location.
I can honestly say I don't think there's anywhere I've been that I haven't learned something. I mean, Drakelow used to be one of my favourites until they stopped doing investigations there.
I love that place.
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I can honestly say everywhere I go, I find something. But Landguard, I do feel like I have a link. There's something about it that I just...
You got a connection with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do think, like you say, military places are... I mean, I got a lot of respect for people in the military and what they did in the war. And I think that brings an emotion, for me anyway, an emotional connection to the place. Like my son's does cadets, he does army stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, just like when he's walking in the parade in Remembrance Sunday, makes me so proud, and think of all the people that have given up their lives to fight for our freedom, etc. So places like that really, really hit home for me, and I love them.
Well, I do. I don't know. I can't remember who called me the military magnet, but it was just the fact that wherever I went, something military related would come through, even if it was a place they didn't know there was a military link. Something would come through that was military based. So I don't know why. I've never been in the military. My only theory is that being a historian and having an interest in military history, it knows that they can put images in my mind, which I'll understand what they're trying to say. Yeah. I don't know, but no, Landguard. I mean, I have respect for anyone who puts their lives on the line for us, whether it's military, whether it's police, whether it's firefighters, whether it's paramedics, because they all take a hell of a lot of risk to look after us. But I do find whenever I hear, like, is it The Last Post being played? Oh my God, I think there was a Channing Tatum film, Dog. I don't know if you've seen it, and it's worth watching. It's funny. But he has to get the dog to the dog's handler's funeral. And obviously they're playing that music.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there with floods of tears. And my husband's like, you've gone again. I can't help it. Every time I hear that music, whether it's on the television, whether it's through the computer, whether it's on the radio, like when they play it at Remembrance Sunday and everything, I'm just floods of tears. I can't help it. It's just so emotive.
The meaning towards it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I really want to visit the Menin Gate one day and hear it play, because they play it every day, don't they? And but I know I'll have to go with shed loads of tissues.
Tissues, yeah.
Sunglasses on and tissues. It's. I mean, you know, when you read about things like the Battle of the Somme and how many men died in the first 15 minutes and stuff, and and things like that, it's like, how can you just go, it's just history? And it's like, I can't. I tell you another one that gets me, another scene. It's the end scene of Blackadder Goes Forth.
Oh,
you know, when they're jumping
part
out
of TV ever made, that is.
Oh my days! I mean, the fact that they did it in a studio, just a few of them, but it's so sort of. I've got World War I historian friends who it gets them, and they know all the history, sort of thing. So, I don't go to these military locations and sort of be. I'm respectful, but not sort of a sycophant about it. No. But I do. I mean, no, Landguard Fort.
That sounds good. I'm going to check it out one day.
Drakelow was on my list until they stopped allowing, because that place had an amazing history, and just the engineering of it and the size of those blasted tunnels was ridiculous.
Yeah. Apart from when you had to go toilet on your own and you shit yourself. Can you go toilet?
No. The only thing I was nervous about was finding people again. I didn't. No, going to the toilet was. I had no qualms wandering off on my own in Drakelow. It's more the case of, can you just make a noise so I know where you are, and I'll head back towards. Yeah,
you're getting lost. There's 4 miles of tunnels. Yeah, it's a bit difficult.
When I was there, who was I there with? I can't remember the group I was there with. They shoved me on, the kitchen area where all the canteen stuff was, and everything. They said to me, "Who's brave?" And they went, "Sit there on your own." Then I could hear something moving around behind me, but they said, "Just sit there on your own and see what happens." I wasn't scared. I was more like, how long do I have to sit here for? I'm cold.
Yeah, it was a bit chilly down there.
It's always cold, but I do love finding new places, and I have got a bucket list of places I want to visit at some point. But the list just keeps on growing.
The more that's written and seen on TV about each place, I want to go there.
And also, when I'm doing historical research and I'll discover a location that's linked to someone, I'll be like, oh, I want to visit there now as well. And it's like I'm lucky that the husband is quite amenable to it when I say, right, we're going on holiday to this part of the UK, we're visiting here, here, and here.
Because,
and he's like,
yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's fine, not a problem. And then they all get the history lesson.
Well, that's a bonus.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
I think so.
Definitely. Do you have a pre-investigation ritual that you go through?
Buying Haribo and Diet Pepsi from the shop.
That counts.
That's pretty much it. I don't tend to do loads of research into a place before I go, because I do like to, even with the history side, I mean, I'll normally know a bit just from general knowledge anyway. But I'm not going in looking at who lived here, who owned this place, who, I don't do any of the stuff. I do that afterwards. That's my thing to do afterwards. No, I don't. I mean, I try and envisage what I want to do. I will think of some of the experiments I might want to carry out, but not really. I like to sort of, I mean, to give you an example, the one I'm doing in a couple of weeks in Chelmsford, it's currently used as a tattooist, and it's in the basement of one of the buildings. And I've been there quite a few times to get my tattoos done, so I know the location. So I'm already working out in my head some of the experiments I want them to do. For example, there's a staircase, and I always feel like someone's at the top waiting to push me. That sounds weird, but that's how so I'm already planning some of the things I'm going to set up on the staircase. I'm planning using some of the mirrors to do some that's kind of prep, possibly. But no, it's really just making sure I've got enough sugar and caffeine
keep you awake,
and I've got batteries, and I've got pens, I've got paper. Then I'm good to go.
Wow.
So I'm quite low maintenance when it comes to prepping.
Yeah, you obviously like using equipment. Do you have a particular type of equipment that you use, or a particular experiment that you like to use the most?
I am a massive fan of trigger experiments. I like trigger work because some of the reactions I've got to trigger work have blown my mind. I do like a spirit box. I'll admit it. I like one, but I don't use them in isolation. It's looking at everything. If I'm honest, a pen and a paper and myself. If someone said to me, you can only use a pen and a paper and yourself to do an investigation, it's fine, because as long as I can write down what's happening, I can then go back and look at it. A torch is normally pretty essential, and you can use a torch for a lot of different things. And maybe a recorder of some sort, so you can. Anything else is a bonus, but it's one of the things I've taught the son, that just because you got a K2 and it's pinging to red doesn't mean anything.
No.
Doesn't mean anything. If you can get it to ping to red on command and drop off on command, that might be something. But if it's just you walking around and it's suddenly going up to red, no. So no, if the bare minimum is a torch, some kind of recording device, and a pen and paper, and I'm happy. Anything else is a bonus, but it's not about taking it in isolation. To give you an example, I went out Epping Forest, walking around it, middle of the day, walking around.
Love that place.
I don't know if you read this bit in the book. My kids, we had the whole family went, dog as well, because we were taking him for a good run. And the kids were arguing. And the area of Epping Forest we were in was where it was notorious for the highwaymen. I think it's called Old Stump Road or Old Stump Lane or something. It got shut and they bypassed it. But it was notorious for highwaymen. And the kids are arguing, and I was getting really annoyed because I'm trying to listen to the spirit box, and there's a woman's voice. And at the same time, I think I might get it the wrong way around. I always had an obelisk running. At the same time that the woman went shh, the obelisk went silence. At the same time.
Wow.
It could be just luck, but it's the fact it's the same time I'm telling the kids to stop arguing because I can't hear. One thing says shush, the other thing says silence.
For me, that is one piece of equipment interacting with the present moment would be amazing. Having two of them on two different devices is, wow, epic. I've had that before, a spirit box and Ovilus device at the same time working together. So it's amazing what you can do with equipment when it's working.
It shut them up.
I bet it did.
Especially the one who kind of understood what was happening. He was just like, he went, sorry, and they stopped arguing then. But so something like that, then yes, if one of them had said shush, I would have still been kind of
impressed.
This is a bit odd because I've just told them to shut up and stop arguing. But it could be a fluke. But for both gadgets to say the same sort of thing,
yeah,
I
possibly.
don't know. No one knows. I mean, this is where people sort of say, "Oh, gadgets are rubbish. Gadgets are this." You don't know, and it's nobody knows. That's the thing. And if you can get something through on one of these that you can prove without square peg into round hole that it's applicable. Yeah. Who are we to say, nah, it's rubbish?
No,
I mean, I'm not a big fan of SLS cameras, right? Because I know they can map in on shadows, they can map in on even like fluctuations in the wallpaper.
Yeah.
Doing the Ghostoul in Southend, which I think is in my Haunted Histories, I write about this. It used to be a rock venue in the 60s. And I was singing along to a whole lot of Rosie, and no, I'm not going to do it now, but I was hitting the high note at the beginning. That used to be my party trick years ago.
Yeah.
And whilst this music is playing, because I was using it as a trigger, on an SLS, they got one person is headbanging, because you can see them doing that with their head, like windmilling their head. Another person is doing that, right?
Wow. Air guitar.
In a rock venue, while I'm playing like Thin Lizzy, AC/DC, Judas Priest. Now, I took the footage and I sent it to someone who wasn't there that night and didn't know where I'd been, and said, what does this look like to you? And she went, someone headbanging and someone playing air guitar.
That's amazing.
Pretty sure the SLS couldn't have picked up that it was rock music that was playing.
No.
So did we get something? I don't know.
It's pretty basic software, to be fair.
Exactly.
The SLS. It's just a figure mapping software. It doesn't pick up on sound and create an image through sound
or location, or knowing that it's in a rock venue, what was a rock venue, which is now a bowling alley. But yeah, we got that, and I'm not kidding. I couldn't actually obviously put the whole footage in the book. I could only put a screenshot, but I saw the whole footage, and it was someone headbanging, because the body was actually bent over, sort of status quo style headbanging, and the other one was playing air guitar.
That's incredible.
Who knows? Nobody knows.
People do moan about equipment. I mean, I use equipment, and I also work with Phil and Sarah and Are You Haunted. They don't use any equipment.
I love those two. I adore those two.
Yeah, awesome. So's Jane, if she's watching.
The whole team. The whole team
definitely.
Are fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously they work back to basics. So I go from one extreme to the other when I work with them, and it is nice to sit and actually take in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But like you say, using the equipment can help. In the past, I've given a piece of footage to Kieran O'Keefe of a spirit box, and he said it was, he didn't know what to say. Yeah. So, Yeah,
no, I've given information to skeptics before, and I want them to give me an idea what it could be, because I want to debunk. Yeah. I want to debunk as much as I possibly can, because if everyone, the biggest brains, still can't work out how it could have happened, it's got to be paranormal. I'm not saying it was a ghost, just being that it was paranormal. I think one of the weirdest things, and I do talk about this in my new book, this experience, I was in France, I was in Normandy. We were gone as a family holiday. I decided it was time for the kids to learn about D-Day. And
did you go to the beach?
Of course, all of them.
I'm going there next year.
Oh, yeah. Have you been before?
No.
Which beach are you going to?
Is it Omaha?
Omaha.
Omaha, yeah.
There are so many cool museums around there. I'll give you when you get closer to going, let me know, and I'll give you a to-do list, because there's amazing stuff around there. Yeah. I had so many weird things happen to me on that holiday. I've lost count. Anyway, the little villa, the little cottage we were staying in was about 500, 600 years old. It used to be a cider farm, and it was gorgeous. And even when we unlocked the door and walked in on the first day, I was like, whoa! You know when you walk into somewhere and it just hits you, like you've got to like cut your way through.
Go through it, thick.
Yeah, it was like that. And I sort of the kids were so tired because we've been traveling for hours. And my husband was a bit like, this feels weird. And I went, oh, it's just because it's been shut up. It's musty. You're fine. Even though I'm thinking, yeah, this is going to be amusing. I haven't got anything with me. It's just me. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen the next 2 weeks, but hey-ho, what happens. Anyway, it was about 2 nights in. My husband was tired, so we'd said we'd have a lazy day at the cottage. It was beautiful weather. We'd all been sunbathing. We'd taken a paddling pool for the kids out because they were quite young.
Yeah. And
we sat there it's like an open plan downstairs. And my youngest's rucksack, the little kiddie rucksacks, the little tiny ones, it had been sat in the middle of this table all day. And the table was a very heavy marble one. It didn't move. There was no vibration or anything. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no roads near us. There's nothing. And we sat there, husband and I, kids have gone to bed. Husband and I sat on the sofa. We'd had a glass or two of wine, but not more than that.
No.
And I was struggling to focus my eyes, which normally means something's going on. It normally means the energy's changing because I get it's like not having my glasses on and trying to look. And the husband goes, what's going on? I feel weird. And I went, yeah, I do too. And as I said it, the bag flew off the table. Like someone had just gone like that with their arm.
Wow.
It flew. It didn't fall. It flew. Husband's sitting there. I'm quite glad he was there because he went, what happened? And I was like, I don't know. Because then the atmosphere just changed. It was so strange. It was at that point he said, I'm going to bed now. And I went, good idea. And we went upstairs because I couldn't explain it. So the next day I tried recreating it. I put it back in the middle of the table, jumped around, shook the table, ran around upstairs, see if anything could cause it to fall. It didn't move. And I've told this to Kev Kerr. I have told it to Kieran. And a couple of other people are quite skeptical, and they're like, "Did you check?" When I got back to the UK, I even checked if there'd been any mini earthquakes in Normandy.
Yeah,
I checked for pipes under the house that could have moved. Anything. There was no tractors in the fields. There's no roads near. It was a dirt track that just led to the cottage. There was nothing.
Wow. Poltergeist activity, eh?
Well, yeah, but the place was weird. I say I've written about it in the new book, but that was one that I wanted someone to give me something I hadn't thought of, because I almost want to say, well, actually, it was. No, and before anyone says no, there was no fishing wire attached to it. It wasn't. The kids weren't old enough to have thought of that. I mean, the older one would probably think of that now, but they were quite young then. But it was the fact that husband said, "I don't feel right." Just before it happened, and I'd already started to think there's something in here, energy building.
He noticed the atmosphere change. Yeah.
And he's as sensitive as a brick. So but yeah, this bag flew. It didn't just fall, it flew off the like somebody had just swept it with their arm. So I can't explain stuff like that, and I've tried.
That's crazy.
Maybe it was poltergeist activity. Maybe it was almost like telekinesis, and that we didn't realize we were doing it. I don't know, but it wasn't normal, and that's what keeps me doing this.
Exactly. That's the hope. People ask me that, like, if you have a quiet night, why are you going out again? Like, no sleep, lots of driving, lots of petrol. Why are you doing it? It's the hope. Maybe the next location, I'm going to get something, and it's going to be amazing.
But even if you're in somewhere for 8 hours and the only thing you get is something on your voice recorder, you can't explain the noise, it's still very cool. I mean, that's what I do say to people when they come on one for the first time. It's like, don't think it's going to be like an episode of Help. Don't think it's going to be like an episode of Ghost Adventures. When you think about the hours that they are recording to get those 20 minutes of evidence.
Yeah.
But then when I've sort of talked to people and they've taken it like that, when they get one weird thing happen on a voice recorder, or they get a REM pod going off and there's no logical explanation why it will not. I mean, when I was at Landguard, I had a REM pod making noises that nobody had ever heard it made before. It was screaming. It was like it was screaming until I went over to it and I started talking to the spirit, and then it sort of started whimpering. I'm not joking. This thing sounded like it was whimpering, and then it stopped. But just one little thing can make you go, ooh, that doesn't make sense, and that's enough. That's enough to justify, like you say, the driving, the petrol, the paranormal hangover the next day, everything else, I think.
Yeah.
And to be honest, even if nothing happens, the fact I can get to walk around this a place that's hundreds of years old.
The history side, yeah, definitely. Who's been there before you? Yeah, kings, queens, amazing people in history. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we went to we were in Somerset recently, and we went to Mulchaney Abbey, and I mean, the family's used to me doing this, but I actually was on my knees with my hand on the old steps that were worn away from where, that hundreds and hundreds of people would have stepped on them, and I'm just putting my hand on it, and I'm just visualizing like 500 years ago, a monk walking up this steps.
Yeah.
I know some people might think I'm weird. The family get me now. They know that I'll just wander off and put a hand on things and just imagine or try and feel what it went through. But, I do get sometimes but when I'm on an investigation, nobody cares that I'm doing that. It's not like members of the public going, what's she doing? But yeah, it's just a privilege to get to visit these places.
Yeah. So I've just got a couple of questions left.
Okay.
I could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately, I need to go to bed soon at some point.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So we've sort of touched on it already. We're going somewhere in an hour's time, anywhere in the world, bucket list location. Where are we going? If you could have access to however long you wanted to this location, where would it be?
Well, one of them I would have said 12 months ago, I'm actually going to be doing in May next year.
Okay.
Penhurst Asylum. I'm going to be.
Yes.
I've been invited to be at the Penhurst Paracon.
Oh, nice! That'd be cool.
I took my way into it, and Rachel and I got to visit in May and got to meet the lovely Mr. Bob Christopher, who runs it. And I was just very cheeky, and I said to him, "Why do you never have any British people here on the Paracon?" And he says, "Because I don't know any." And I was like, "Ta-da!" So I'm actually going to be part of like the celebrity ghost hunts and everything at the Paracon, which I'm actually very nervous about. The inferiority complex is like bing bing when you got people like Nick Groff and that are going to be there, and I'm going bing bing. So that would have been. Wow. Do you know what? This is a really boring one. I would love to do Scampton, RAF Scampton, where Guy Gibson was based. And I know that's that's really boring because he's one of my heroes, and I would love to see if the military magnet worked. And I was able to talk to Guy Gibson because I just adore him. So yeah, it's probably really boring, but yeah, somewhere like I'd love to do RAF Scampton. So it would have been Penhurst, but I'll be getting to do that. Thing is, there's so many amazing places, but I'm really lucky in that I know a lot of people that if I was going to be in that country, I could phone them up and say, "Can I come and have a look around?" Yeah. But yeah, Penhurst would have been one, but I got to explore it, and then I got the scratches on the neck, and that was just during the day. So heaven only knows what the energy will be like when the sun goes down. What's yours? What would be your dream location?
I have two. I have the Enfield House,
right?
Because no one's ever been there. No one's probably ever going to go there unless someone buys it, like the Conjuring House, and starts renting it out, just to see if there is anything there.
Right.
And also Island of the Dolls, because I love haunted dolls. So the one in Mexico.
I know where it is. Yeah. I mean, I know people who sort of said places like Chichen Itza and everything in Mexico, and that doesn't appeal to me at all. No. I mean, I've been there, and it feels nasty. It does feel very, very. It's not got a nice feel to it, in my opinion. But the Island of the Dolls, that would be. Ooh. Yeah.
A few hours on a little boat, a little motorboat to get there.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting one. I mean, I think, and I can't remember what the place is called, but there was a place in Spain that is always shut. It's a town that was absolutely demolished during the Civil War out there, and I can't for the life of me think what it's called. But I don't know if I'd almost feel like I was treading on people's graves. By going there. I mean, I've never wanted to investigate anywhere like Auschwitz or anywhere like that. I think
that's too sensitive. To be
fair. I'm kind of, because I'm of the opinion that if spirits want to talk to you, they'll talk to you whether you're investigating or not.
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to investigate it. I'm actually scared to visit it because I sense things, so I know I'm going to be overwhelmed. But yeah, in honesty, Scampton, RAF Scampton, I'm like I say, I'm low maintenance. Mine's in the UK.
Hey.
But RAF Scampton would,
Nice.
see if Guy is still there. Yeah,
that's good.
easy one. But they don't allow investigations. I've tried. I've been
One
trying
day, maybe you'll meet somebody or someone will hear one of your stories, your books, and think, oh, she could come along.
Oh, I don't know. They don't allow it. I mean, even when it was decommissioned.
I was going to say, is it
they
still
took
in
the
use?
No, they took it was still being run as an RAF base. They removed the Typhoons. I don't know where the Typhoons went, but they went. I even contacted the CO. I said, is there any chance I could come into the old World War II bit, for want of a better term, where Guy Gibson's offices were? And they were like, no, we don't allow it. When it was sold on, I tried again, and they said, no, we don't allow it. I even tried James Holland, the historian.
Yeah.
Even he was trying to get us in there when he said, all right, if I can get it, will you come with me? And I was like, yes. Even he couldn't make it happen. So
maybe one day out of nowhere, something will happen. If you're meant to be there, it will happen.
Well, I think I'm meant to be with Guy. I think I am meant to be with Wing Commander Guy Gibson. So,
Fingers crossed.
We could talk aeroplanes for hours.
Yeah. Well, them fuckers.
Them little fuckers get everywhere. Yeah. That would be mine. RAF Scampton. I'm sure there's loads of places. I'm gonna hang up here. Oh, I should have said that. But no, Scampton is always.
That's so good. So my last question: if you could get rid of one thing in the paranormal, whether it's location, a person, equipment, a story about a haunting, what would it be?
Oh, I'm going to get cancelled myself for this. All right, I'm going to say a couple of things.
Okay.
Egos.
Yeah.
I don't mean confidence, and I don't mean a belief in yourself. I mean those people who put other people down because they don't have the same opinion as them.
Mm-hmm.
Egos.
Yeah.
Another thing I would get rid of, to give you an example, Bathsheba Sherman, supposed to be in the Conjuring House witch and everything else.
Yeah.
The historian in the States, Jamie Rubio, has done a lot of research into and proved that she wasn't who the Warrens and so-called storytellers said she was. Her grave got desecrated not so long ago.
Yeah, a few times, yeah.
Yeah, because people think who she is. Well, I actually did take part in the campaign to raise funds to get her a new gravestone because she's not who they say they were. She said they say she was. So that kind of thing I'd get rid of. But that also boils down to ego. So that's one particular story that I would have shoved into the cellars for the demons to play with, because desecrating someone's grave, because the argument is if she was as bad as they say she was, she wouldn't have been buried in consecrated ground anyway.
She wouldn't. She lived down in the next village, didn't she?
Something like that, yeah. I'm not mega au fait with the story, but say Jamie has done loads of research on her, and like official records and everything else. So that kind of thing, I would want to put in Route 101, basically, and egos, like and because I've always said this in the paranormal world: if we all helped each other, how much would we discover?
Exactly.
If we could all put things we've found online for other people to comment on without fear of ridicule, without fear of people going, well, what makes you think, you've only been doing this 10 years. I've been doing it 35. I'm much more experienced than you. How much? I actually like the people who've only been doing it a couple of years because they look at it with different eyes and it makes you go, oh, like a kid would. So the ego, that's what I would get rid of. What would you get rid of, Miki?
Dowsing rods.
Dowsing rods?
I hate dowsing rods.
I see, I've had some amazing results with dowsing rods.
Anything that can be manipulated by yourself, subconsciously holding stuff. Some people I've seen, no, it's spinning. No, you're moving your hand. And pendulums.
Yeah, I can't work pendulums, but I can work dowsing rods.
Oh, it's moving. That's you moving it.
Yeah, but a lot of things
Sometimes.
was it idiomotor response.
Yeah. Same with Ouija boards. Not meaning to push it, but you do subconsciously. Like you say.
But it's like any equipment. If it's in isolation, you can't trust it. But if you've got a yes coming up on your dowsing rods, you've got a yes coming up on an ovilus, and you've got a yes on the Ouija board, all at the same time in different rooms, and nobody knows what the other one's getting.
Yeah.
Could it not?
Oh yeah. Don't tell me off. I don't like dowsing rods.
Fine. There's things I don't like. I'm not a fan of crystals. I'm not. But oh, dowsing rods. Okay. Thought you were going to say historians.
No, I love historians.
We're a pain in the backside because we spoil everyone's.
You keep proving us wrong. Yeah. Oh,
I hate that. I do hate that sometimes when someone says, "Yeah, such and such is," and I'm like, "Yeah, this place wasn't existing in World War One, so I don't know where you're getting that from."
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. So, as we're going to finish, when is your book out? So you mentioned a new book. Is that coming out soon?
Imminently. I was hoping to have it ready to launch at the festival, but there's been a few issues getting the artwork sorted and everything else, so it might be the Parameet North. I don't know. It's going to be at some point in the next few months, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I'm also doing a rewrite of my Haunted History and adding in an 11th chapter, so there'll be a new version of that out in the next 3 or 4 months as well. Okay,
so when I come to Parameet North, if I bring these, you can sign them for me, yeah?
Have I not signed any of those? Didn't you buy one recently off me?
No.
No?
This one's signed, the Epping Forest one.
That must have been the one you bought at the Parameet South.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I only got these recently, the other 3, so I'll bring them up and get you to sign them. Please.
No problem. Not a problem, Mr. York.
Awesome.
I mean, I mean, you and I need to do an investigation together at some point as well.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you want to gobby a historian along, just let me know.
Cool. I'll give you a bell. So where can people find you on your socials or to contact you for any of your books, etc.?
Well, the website is hauntedhistories.co.uk. Very easy to remember. The website, my Facebook is Haunted Histories. I am on Instagram and Twitter, although I don't always use those. So the easiest ways is go on the website. It's got my email address on the bottom, or go on Facebook and find Haunted Histories and drop me a message on there.
Perfect.
Or come along to the Festival of the Unexplained in Bosworth Hall in a few weeks, or come along to the Parameet North in Pontefract on the 19th and 20th of October.
There you go, guys. Awesome. Thank you so much for tonight, Penny.
You're so welcome. Thank you for asking me on, Miki.
No worries.
You knew there wouldn't be dead air with us talking.
Obviously not. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow, guys. So there you go. Penny is awesome. Go buy her books. Go catch up on her Haunted History podcast, and you will not be disappointed. So, thank you so much for watching. I'm punching the microphone. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. This podcast is small. We are growing really well. And thank you, everybody, for all your feedback, your comments, your likes. You've been awesome. Thank you to all the guests so far and all the guests I have lined up. Brilliant. And like the Instagram page. And I'll see you guys next week for another awesome guest. See you later.